Tax season is officially underway, and you might notice a few welcome changes thanks to the IRS announcing inflation adjustments for this tax year.
But the nation reaching its debt ceiling of $31.4 trillion could mean wide-ranging troubles with your refund and beyond that. So joining us now to help sort us through all of this is U.S. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo. Thank you for joining us, Secretary.
Well, it's good to be back with you. Good afternoon.
So let's jump in, because Treasury Secretary Yellen has told Congress that extraordinary measures will be used to avoid going into default. Let's break this down for people. What does that mean for the United States to default? Who's our creditor? Can you just break it down? This is such a complicated topic for a lot of people.
So I recognize that one of the most important things for the American people is to understand that every year Congress passes a budget. What the debt limit is not about spending money. It's about paying for the things we've already agreed to spend money on by Congress. So it's about paying for Social Security. It's about paying our troops. It's about paying for everything else that we do in this country. And in the more than 200-year history of the United States, we've never defaulted on our debt. We don't expect to do it this time. We know that bipartisan majority of members of Congress are in support of raising the debt limit, and we should do that as soon as possible, because today we have a very strong economy. We want to make sure that the debt limit isn't something that gets in the way of the strength of the U.S. economy.
So, Secretary, what happens to the American people if the U.S. goes into default?
So as I said earlier, the United States has never went into default. But the last time people thought that we might not increase the debt limit, you saw that the United States credit rating was downgraded. You saw the stock market decrease. And fundamentally, if we don't agree to raise the debt limit, what it means is that we're unable to pay our bills like Social Security, pay our bills to our troops, and to pay the other bills that the United States pays on a regular basis to make sure that we're able to fund the country going forward. So it's something that we can never do, is default on our debt, and we expect that Congress will raise the debt limit.
As you just mentioned, there are real consequences for that if they don't. It has been raised some 80 times since the 60s when the House and the Senate agreed to do so. So this isn't necessarily unusual. What do Democrats and Republicans need to do to find a solution here?
The truth is that we need to raise the debt limit, and it's something that, as you've mentioned, we've done on a regular basis. Ultimately, the solution to this is Congress doing what they've done more than 80 times, which is on a bipartisan basis, raising the debt limit and putting us in a position where we can continue to make the investments in the United States that allows our economy to grow. Over the last 2 years, we've created more jobs in America than in the last 50 years. The last thing we need is a manufactured crisis with the debt limit that could have a serious impact on the U.S. economy and make it harder for us to help the American people as we continue the landmark recovery that we're having here in America.
All right, Secretary, let's talk about taxes. The Inflation Reduction Act allocated $80 billion to the IRS, and the money might help the agency make some upgrades. At the end of last year, they had a huge backlog of tax returns, and only 13% of 173 million calls to them were addressed. What sort of improvement will we see this year?
So we're already going to see improvements because of the money that Congress gave to the IRS to help improve services. And you're right that last year our calls answered were quite low. And part of that is because the IRS just didn't have enough people. So we've already hired an additional 5,000 people to answer the phones this year. But in addition to being able to get through on the phone lines, another thing that people can do is use our technology, which is being improved massively as well. So you can get through on an automated line to answer your question if you don't want to talk to a person. One thing that I would like to remind people of is that because we had underinvested in the IRS, their technology system was based on 1960s technology. That was before we had an ATM, before we had personal computers. And today, because of the money Congress provided, we're going to be able to upgrade that technology so that this year, small businesses are able to upload more forms to the IRS rather than having to send them by mail. We're also going to have 100 Saturday tax assistance days throughout the country so that people who don't want to call on the phone but want to get help from the IRS can go to see the more than 700 people who are going to be fanning out throughout the country to help people answer tax questions. So you're going to see more improvements this year because of the money Congress has given, but over the next several years we're going to continue to improve customer service going forward.
It sounds like those upgrades are definitely needed. Now, we won't see a lot of those COVID-19 tax credits and deductions for this last year, the 2020 2022 tax return season. Those were such a huge help for a lot of Americans. So moving forward, you say that there are some energy-related tax credits that really could save people money in the long term. Can you tell us about those?
So as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, where the IRS was given money to improve its services, Congress also put in climate provisions that are going to help people cut costs. So if you're making improvements to your home, getting new windows, getting a new furnace, or going out to buy a new car, and it's an energy efficient vehicle, you're buying an electric vehicle, or you're putting in windows to make your home more energy efficient, you can get thousands of dollars back from the government and also reduce your monthly bills going forward. So in order to find information about that, please visit the IRS website or cleanenergy.gov, where you can find information about the ways the Inflation Reduction Act can help you reduce your costs.
Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.